Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sports with Warbs. Today, I have got another hockey video for you guys based on the odds that have recently come out for the 2021 Stanley Cup. So, recently, because the divisions got announced mostly, and a lot of the teams are getting set to come back, and it looks like the season's happening. They put out the odds for who's going to win this year. So, today, I'm just going to kind of go over a couple of things that stood out to me from the odds that were put out. These were on Bodog. But yeah, this is to win the whole Stanley Cup. So when looking at this video, I tried to kind of think about more so teams that actually have a chance at the cup. There's impressive teams that have low odds that could win their division or stuff like that, but that doesn't really affect what has come out today and what people are now betting on. I kind of just saw this as an opportunity to look at how other people are thinking teams are going into the season, kind of gives us a chance to take whatever looks I have on the divisions or on the teams and then see what other people are thinking. We're going to split this video into a couple different sections. We're going to have the top dogs. So that's the teams that are at the very top, the ones that have good odds. All three of the teams I'm talking about are all under 1,000, so these are the front runners. These are the teams that the makers think will be having a good chance to win this year. And then I'm going to talk about some of the Canadian teams, of course. Just to start off here, the team with the lowest odds is the Colorado Avalanche at plus 600. So these are the best odds out of any team. So that means they think this is the best team to win the cup. This is the team that will be winning the Stanley Cup. So plus 600 odds. I picked them last year as my team to win it all in the 2020 season before the bubble came in. And then I kind of just stuck it out with them as my pick into the bubble. But I made that pick on the first or second episode of the Hot Take Hockey podcast way back over almost a year ago now, I guess. Yeah, so I really like the Avalanche. I mean, they've got Nathan MacKinnon, who I think for my money, this is probably his year to win the Hart. And he can obviously lead a team very well. So it makes sense that for that to happen. They've got a bunch of other guys. They got Rantanen, they've got Landeskog, and some other people I want to talk about. So some of the reasons I think they are the first team is the positive moves they made in the offseason. They were able to trade for Devin Taves, defenseman from the Islanders. The Islanders were cap pressed. They had to get rid of some players. This is a guy I don't think they would probably give up if they didn't have their back against the wall. So this is a great pickup for them. He can slot into the top four. He's a top four D-man, or he could play the bottom pairing depending on what they want to do. But he is a great pickup for them. Can be seen as nothing but a positive addition because of the fact that they traded him for picks as well. So they lost no value on their team. They're basically just adding a guy to make their team already better than they currently are. Another move they made was trading for Brandon Saad. So I feel like a lot of hockey fans probably know Brandon Saad. He's been on the Blackhawks twice. He got traded for Panarin. He's been around the league. He's a good player. I mean, 20 goals in 5 of his last 6 seasons. If he can bring that to the Avalanche, that's just more goals on a team that's already stacked in the forward position. So the Avalanche really did just do things to make their teams better. Last season, they had both their goalies injured in the bubble, so they had to play Hutchison, which obviously hurt their chances coming down to try to make it into the make it further in the playoffs. So that obviously hurt them. Hopefully they'll have their 2 goalies back. They'll be stacked in the back end because they got 2 guys they can start all the time. They're going to have these additions on defense and forward. I think the Avalanche are a very solid pick to make it far this year and potentially win. Very full team there. And then second, this is kind of where it's a little shocking. The Tampa Bay Lightning are second. It's only shocking for the fact that they aren't first. Tampa Bay has been the heavy favorite in basically every year the past 2 or 3. We all know what happened with Columbus. They got swept when they had that insane year, and then they ended up coming back last year and then winning. So they got their championship. But the reason they might have fallen to 750 odds is because they have had contract troubles. I mean, they're up against the wall. They needed to waive Tyler Johnson. That was a guy who obviously was a big impact on the team years ago, not so much as of late, which gives them the opportunity to waive them. They've had guys who are come up and be way better than him. The fact that they're waiving a guy who has a $5 million contract and has no move on his clause meant that basically no one wanted to help them. So no team wanted to bail out the Lightning. and trade them and get a good pick for taking on that contract, like Detroit or some of these lower teams that can take on a lot of money. They can usually get value from that, but no one wanted to help the Lightning. They wanted to see them struggle after so many good years of getting these players and signing them to these contracts. That's obviously going to play into this year. They lost Johnson. They still got all their core pieces there, so that's why they are still second to win the cup and go back to back. They still got a lot of their core players, so which is why they are the second best odds. I mean, it makes sense. They've still got Stamkos, Kucherov, Point, Vasilevsky, and net, Hedman. So they are still a good team. They're going to make a deep run. But the fact that they are not in first is something to look for. They lost Shattenkirk and Bogosian, two older defensemen who they kind of could afford to let go, but they needed to have a quiet offseason. And that leads us into the Vegas Golden Knights, another team that no one wanted to help out. So they have the third best odds at plus 850. This is the last team that's under that plus 1,000 mark. This is interesting because, I mean, they did go out and make big moves like Vegas likes to do. They went out and signed Pietrangelo to a monster 7-year, $8.8 million contract. That was one of the only deals in the offseason this year that felt like it was an actual deal that would happen consistently in the NHL. A lot of the deals were COVID deals because of the situation. Lower contract years for less money, like Taylor Hall signed for 1 year and a bunch of money, which normally he would try to sign a long contract. So Pietrangelo was one of the lucky people who was able to get their monster deal. And that has kind of led to them being in a tough position because they also signed Robin Lehner along with that, the goalie, to a 5-year contract. So that's two big signings in Pietrangelo and Robin Lehner to the team. But now they're a little bit pressed for cap. They still need to make some moves. I mean, to get under. One move they did make was trading Nate Schmidt to Vancouver. He's a good defenseman. They signed him to a monster deal a couple years ago and then basically gone as soon as they get into cap troubles and they realize Pietrangelo could be better for them on the back end. I think he took that personally because they did sign him to that big contract recently and then trade him. That doesn't really bode well with players when they commit to your team and then you're willing to ship them off as soon as someone a little better gets there. But in this situation, it is a lot better. Pietrangelo is a top 10 defense, but I can see why he would be upset. But he's off to Vancouver, and it looks like they're going to need to trade another guy. The rumor has it is Pacioretty, one of the prime players for their team on the forward position, might be on the move. I mean, there's rumors of it. The GM said they don't see it, that he doesn't want to do it, but then rumors are there for a reason. And Marchessault and Fleury are also included on that. So 3 guys who are key to the team. Fleury, he probably will be backing up Lehner a little more, so it would make sense to try to get rid of him for a cheaper backup. But Marchessault is someone who broke out on the Golden Knights. It's interesting to see where it goes. But losing one of those players could also affect the odds and put them up over the 1,000 mark. But as of right now, they are the third best odds to win the Stanley Cup next year. So those are the heavy hitters, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. But moving on, the Canadian teams, there's a couple interesting storylines here as well. The number 1 team and the 5th best odds to win the cup are the Leafs. So I have my opinions about the Leafs, and this is pretty much them. I could see them being the best team in the Canadian division. I'm not going to lie. They've got a lot of skill up and down the lineup. They still got Anderson and net, who I'm pretty confident in. It seems like some people are saying he needs to prove himself even more, but I don't think goaltending is necessarily the problem there. So to have their good goaltending, they've got their forwards, they've got all these guys on big contracts. They just brought in the Grit and Simmons and Thornton. So I can see them being the best team in the Canadian division. Their odds are at plus 1,300. So 1,300 to win the cup. Best Canadian team, potentially the best Canadian team in that division. But then again, we are looking at winning the cup. I know a lot of Leafs fans, they're confident in their team, which they should be. But do you believe that the Leafs will be the 2021 Stanley Cup champions? Would you be willing to put money on that? I don't know. Winning their first playoff series, I could definitely see that happening. Winning 2 playoff series, I could see that happening. But I don't know if I'm confident that they can go from not winning any to being the Stanley Cup champions in 1 year. But it'll be interesting to see. They're definitely going to make the playoffs, so that's a good bet. But to win the cup, we're going to have to stay tuned for that. I'm not so sure. With that being said, moving on to the Oilers. So this is another thing I thought was interesting. The second best odds for a Canadian team to win the cup are the Edmonton Oilers. This warms my heart because they're ahead of Calgary by plus 1,500 to win is interesting because a lot of teams like to compare those two as pretty similar, even though Calgary arguably has more depth up and down the lineup, not as much star power. So it's interesting to see how big of a gap that is. And the thing that I picked out of this was that they are tied with the Penguins. So a team that they get compared to a lot, having two superstars at the top. Penguins are going to be starting a young goalie in Tristan Jarry all year. He's going to get the nod. Murray's off to Ottawa. So it'll be interesting to see how the Penguins go. I think plus 2,000 is probably a fair number for them. I could see them making a run. I mean, you never know. They have Sidney Crosby. It'll be interesting to see. But them having equal odds is definitely an interesting storyline going in to see how even Pittsburgh and Edmonton will be, especially because they're playing in wildly different divisions. The Oilers will be in the Canadian division, and then obviously the Penguins will be in one of those other U.S. divisions. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, these predictions won't be answered until the end of this upcoming season, so a long way away. But going into the season, there's a couple of good picks here. There's a couple of surprises, but we'll see. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate the support. Hockey videos are still coming out. I'm still waiting to see if the Blue Jays will finally sign someone so I can make a baseball video. But as of now, all eyes are forward on the NHL. NBA is coming back in a couple weeks. Preseason games have started, so we can see what's happening there. Thank you guys all for watching, and I will see you later.